former U.S. intelligence officer. He's joining us today on the Capitol Show. Mr. Norman, you are most welcome. President Trump has framed the Golden Dome as a turning point in American defense. Do you believe this was a reactive move to a specific threat or a proactive reshaping of U.S. military doctrine?
President Trump's decision reflects a wise and appropriate response to a problem that has been developing over many years, but has accelerated in its scale and in its threat in recent years as China, Russia, North Korea, and even Iran have expanded the missile threat to the United States and its partners.
From an intelligence perspective, what makes the Golden Dome a game changer in American defense strategy, in your opinion?
The nature of the Golden Dome itself is how it would respond to a very different type of emerging threat. So let me spend a moment to talk about that. What we have is a growing number of countries that are developing intercontinental ballistic missiles, as well as space-based missile threats with warheads that are capable of maneuvering rapidly. Thus, they're able to strike multiple numbers of targets in the United States. And this requires an expanded numbers of radars, sensors, and interceptors. This is a vast new defense problem for the United States and its allies, and will be very costly. So we need a program that is a way to respond to this threat from multiple actors that is done in a cost-efficient manner, because this could be extraordinarily expensive. Some of the estimates are looking at as much as $500 billion eventually, and we will not be able to defend every target. So we're going to need to do this in an appropriate, careful, multi-layered fashion that involves land, sea, and space-based defense and offense assets.
So is the Golden Dome primarily a missile shield, a cyber defense grid, or something more integrated? Can you elaborate on this matter more?
Well, again, let's look at the threat. So let's imagine that China, Russia, North Korea, Iran has a missile that they fire from a land or sea-based platform, a submarine or a land system against the United States, or Russia or China have placed a missile in a satellite circling the Earth. We need to be able to immediately identify the launch and first say, can we kill that missile as it's taking off? So you need to have radar that it's very capable of spotting that around the world very quickly. Now that's an extraordinary technical challenge. And then you need to have missiles themselves that are pre-positioned, that are able to fire and reach those missiles as they're taking off very quickly. That will be very difficult. But if the missiles are, the adversary missiles are in satellites, you'll have very little time. Now your next stage is, if the adversary missiles have been launched against the United States and they're coming at Washington, D.C., or New York, or Chicago, or Los Angeles, you need to have local radar and interceptors to guide your missile defenses to attack those missiles as they're coming in to, again, protect the cities. So you can see that the scale of this defense system and the defensive attack system against the incoming missiles could be world-based, because this threat would not only be against the United States, but in theory would be against all of our partners. This would be against the United Kingdom. This would be against France or Germany from Iranian missiles. And I want to spend a moment on this. The latest Defense Intelligence Agency study did an assessment of Iran's emerging intercontinental ballistic missile program. And they put out a very important and new assessment, which has received little attention. And that assessment is that by 2035, Iran is expected to have a greater missile threat for long-range missiles than North Korea. Well, that's terribly alarming if you are in London, Paris, Berlin, let alone the United States. So we have about 10 years to develop a defense against that system.
How do you assess the impact of the Golden Dome on Iran and its proxies network in Lebanon, Iraq, and Yemen? Do you believe Iran will adjust its strategic calculus knowing the US has a defense umbrella like this?
It's a very important and smart question. I wish more journalists were as wise as you in asking this, because it strikes to the heart of the nuclear negotiation talks. As people ask, why does the United States focus on Iran's nuclear weapons program? You now have to go back to that Defense Intelligence Agency report, which states that by 2035, the United States estimates that Iran could have as many as 60 intercontinental ballistic missiles. Now, if Iran is permitted to develop a nuclear weapons program and marries those two systems together, which is reasonable because you don't develop long-range missiles unless you have a nuclear program, the United States could face 60 nuclear weapons from Iran. That's unacceptable. So you see the Trump administration's focus on Iran's nuclear program as being very wise and very reasonable, in part because of the threat, the long-range threat to the United States.
So can the system neutralize asymmetric threats like drones and missiles used by Hezbollah or the Houthis, proxies, Iran proxies?
The Golden Dome system is not meant for short-range threats. It's not like exactly the Iron Dome system of Israel. However, it does use certain technologies that would be used against drones and other missiles. For example, if you wish to kill an incoming missile, sometimes you use what people think of as energy-based systems. So sometimes people think of lasers that you shoot at another missile. That's often seen in movies, but lasers require a tremendous amount of energy and focus, and that's one way of handling a threat. But you also can use microwave radiation to bring down a missile, but both lasers and microwave tools are very effective against drones and incoming missiles. So the systems that Israel has used effectively against Hezbollah and Houthi attacks would be part of the Golden Dome technology, because you're looking at multiple layers to defend the United States and partners, and that one of those layers is appropriate for defensive activity against some Hezbollah and proxy threats.
Is the Golden Dome resilient against advanced cyber attacks from state actors like Russia or China? You mentioned them. What role does artificial intelligence play in enhancing or threatening the system's reliability?
Well, Golden Dome is meant against missile threats, not against cyber threats in and of itself. However, artificial intelligence will absolutely be used to accelerate and improve the decision making of a Golden Dome defensive capacity. Because I want you to imagine the moment a system like this is called upon to be used in a war between the United States and China, or the United States and Russia, or if Iran were to launch 60 missiles against the United States. You have all of these different missiles coming in against multiple targets in the United States. The warheads on these missiles are maneuverable. So it's not as if when a missile comes in, it just lands in a straight line, but that warhead can change directions once it starts to land. So you would need artificial intelligence to direct the lasers, the microwaves, the anti-missile missiles you might use yourself to respond to that threat. So there is no question that the artificial intelligence industry of the United States would play a large role in a golden defense system. And therefore, President Trump's focus on artificial intelligence technology and his partnership with our very good Gulf partners is a wise step in building that technology.
If you were still at the CIA, how would you assess the Golden Dome's effectiveness, real versus perceived?
Well, the CIA's job would not be to assess the effectiveness of that program. And also, the Golden Dome system has only just started. And indeed, the president has just requested $25 billion as the foundational budget for a program that will certainly cost far, far more than this and will take many years to build. The CIA's job would be to understand and assess the missile threat and the technologies used in those missiles by countries threatening the United States. So we wouldn't attempt to judge the effectiveness of the United States system. That's for the Pentagon to do. Our job would be to understand what adversary countries are doing to threaten the United States and then to pass that information to the Pentagon.
Could this initiative evolve into an international defense network? Can we share this knowledge with the U.S. allies like Saudi Arabia, UAE, Israel, or can the NATO knows about it and be part of it?
The question is excellent. And I think, again, I think you need to understand that Golden Dome will not be one system. It will not be one defense system, and it will not be one interception system. So you're looking at multiple layers, and it's inevitable that some of those layers in different ways will be shared and developed by, and even produced by different partners. Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates are profoundly important defense and military partners to the United States, as is Israel. It's inconceivable that some of these technologies will not be shared and even developed by these partners. It just that they may not all be appropriate for use by these partners. Saudi Arabia may not need to use, or the Emirates or Israel, certain space-based counter threat technologies that the United States would need to rely upon. But the short answer to your question is yes, sharing will take place, but I think we're going to benefit from these countries as much as we support these countries.
What would you say to Americans who ask, are we really safer with the Golden Dome?
I would say it's too early to tell, but we are absolutely safer, that we are thinking about how we could be safer because this threat is certainly there. We have seen China and Iran develop missile systems and space-based systems. We need a technology to defend against that. We are blessed that our intelligence systems have been able to predict this, to get ahead of this, to allow us that insight. And we are blessed that we have a leadership and a private sector industry that is capable of adjusting to build this. And last, we're fortunate that we have the time to consider how to build this multi-layered program with our excellent partners. The question just comes down to, will we be able to marshal the resources and wisely develop that? But time will tell. And we've done this in the past, so I'm confident we'll work this out, but it will be expensive and it will require partners.
Mr. Norman Roule, thank you so much for being with us.
You're welcome.